world rejects you.
Welcome to 40 Years of Ninja Turtles. My name is Jason Williams. I'm a YouTuber. I go by That Weekend Warrior on YouTube. I love talking about toys, video games, comics. I also love talking about records and random VHS. And I had the pleasure of having my Secret of the Ooze signed by these three gentlemen here. So thank you so much. This is awesome. I think the best way to start with asking these questions for all of you is like, what was your first experience with the Ninja Turtles? It could be toys, it could be comics, it could be even just doing the films.
Well, we'll go down the line, but I'll say this. About 4 months ago, and I told my brother this, about 4 months ago, I was looking through I have a library, and it's kind of / workout room. I love all my books. I got Frazetta, everybody up there. And there happened to be a comic bag. And back in the day, in the 90s, you'd go to your comic book store, get your subscription or whatever, and they put it in a bag, and it had whatever Marvel comics coming next month, whatever was on it. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what's in here. So I opened it up, and I had 2 issues, number 2 and number 3, first printing of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was insane. I was like, holy cow, I told these guys, and everybody, once again, when you tell other people, they're like, oh, my God, you could sell those for a lot of money.
I was about to ask, are you wanting to sell those?
And I probably paid for them.
Yeah. No.
Because I'm much older than my brother.
Yeah. No, and in reality, you probably did pay for them, because I remember picking up, Frank Miller's Dark Knight, 4 of those copies, and I still have those in mint condition, and he picked them up for me. We went to every comic shop. It was near Tony's house that we picked that up and probably got those comics there. And, ever since then, just been a fan of, Ninja Turtles, because of Eastman and Leard and just following them. I didn't get anything after that because obviously you always pick up and we were just talking about this, Tony, John Byrne had stuff. Michael Golden, you had Epic. Back then you had so many comics to pick up. You just couldn't afford everything. You would walk out with $200 of comics every month, and you couldn't do it. So those were the only 2 issues I had, and possibly maybe one other, but I haven't found that one yet because I got to look through all my garbage. the sand crawler.
Basically, my brother and I got the habit of getting comics from, we have an older brother who used to collect comics. So eventually he handed them down to me, and then eventually I would hand them down to Carlos. So we would always be trying to get anything that looked cool. Oh, yeah, trying to collect stuff, try to keep it in mint. Nexus, yeah, big Nexus fan. But it was just, at that time, little did we know that we would ever be working with anything related to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah, a bunch of geeks, martial art geeks, and comic geeks. Yeah, anime geeks. Yeah, everything.
You name it, Dungeons and Dragons, everything.
Yeah, a lot of D&T.
Gamma World, all of that.
Yeah, and so I was familiar with the Ninja Turtles. Frank. During the Frank Miller Daredevil thing. And what is it? The foot? Is it the hand? So you knew about this type of stuff or whatever. Because I was also into comics or whatever. But for me, it was very much Marvel and DC. I wasn't buying into independent stuff, and so you kind of knew about the Ninja Turtles. You knew about the foot and the hand and all of these type of things. But really, what? And then the animated thing came out. But really, what got to me was that first Ninja Turtles video game, because you're going from Space Invaders, Centipede, Millipede, all of these type of things, and now just kind of like with the MCU, wow, this is what this would look like when you're playing this video game and you're playing as the Ninja Turtles and they're scrolling or whatever. But wow, this is something that they're doing martial arts. It's the Ninja Turtles. You're playing, and that's what really struck me as wow, the Ninja Turtles are a thing.
Yeah. So who was your go-to on that first Ninja Turtle game?
Oh my God,
Ralphie.
He doesn't want to admit it because Ho-Sung, who was scheduled to be here, but he's filming a movie, and they wouldn't let him off for the weekend because naturally there's a budget and somebody's always crunching budget. But yeah, Raphael, Liu Kang are the same.
Yeah.
So Tony has a hard time with both. Not being Raphael, but Leonardo's
could
pretty
see
good.
when he
Leo's
stuttered.
pretty good. And then,
I was gonna say,
and then
like, are
his
you gonna
constant
claim
fight with
Leonardo,
Ho-Sung.
or are we gonna go with Donatello? Because I mean, the bow staff, it was much larger reach. It kept the enemies away because the game was not easy. I mean, the swimming level with all the electrical. So
Oh my God.
then it didn't matter what weapon you had. It was just like anxiety running the whole way
hated
through.
that.
Awesome. All right, so this is a fun little snippet for me. So the other night, we had a brief conversation at my booth, and we were talking about martial arts in the 80s. So this is just my lens. If you disagree, it's okay. That's why opinions exist in this world, is the fact that, like, the 80s to me was such an iconic and golden time when it came to martial arts. I was born in 78, and during that time, of course, you had Ernie Reyes, who you guys know, and he's been in the films and everything too. And he did we were talking about the show. Like, he did this show. A lot of you probably don't remember this, but he did a TV show where he was adopted by a police officer. I think that was the case, right? And the police officer could never solve the crimes because Ernie Reyes had to step in and to kick their butts and everything too. And I think it ran for one season. But during that whole time in the 80s, you had those films. But then, and I'm probably going to mess up the name, I've always said Sho Kasuji. And so those movies, those Ninja Domination and Enter the Ninja, all those, you had American Ninja. Everything was like so martial arts driven. And like as a kid, growing up in the 80s, I'm like, I wanted to do that. And so we were talking about this. It's like, I studied Tong Sudo. Like, actually, I grabbed Carlos's nunchucks earlier. I was like, can I see him? And he was just trying to show him. And then I started swimming around. They're like, oh, you actually can do that. It's like, not as good as you. But yeah, like back in the day, I used to do nunchucks and everything too. Yeah. And so what I wanted to talk about a little bit, and this kind of led into Ninja Turtles, and I think this is my opinion why it was so pivotal, is I'd like for you three to talk about, like, what it meant to be a martial artist and doing stuff in the 80s when it seemed like, from a lens perspective, everyone was gravitating towards that. Chuck definitely was, icon with the movies and everything too. We had Lost Bruce, but also like Jeet Kune Do was starting to be adopted a little bit more. So what gravitated, you all to want to become martial artists and then to keep going, and how was it important to you?
Well, obviously, even though I'm going first, I wanted to get into martial arts because of my brother Daniel. My dad would take my brother first to judo, and then eventually he would end up in Chinatown to take classes there because, every now and then, back in the 70s, places would open up and then they would close like a year, 2 years later. It's just how it was because, not everyone wanted to learn martial arts. Only probably military people, older military. But my brother, he can explain his story. But anyways, I remember being 5 years old in Chinatown at Sifu Choi's school, La Ho Ba Fa, and I'm stretching 5 years old, and watching everybody, because back then the Chinese would teach. And this is once again in that era of when there was segregation. But it didn't matter because when you were in Chinatown, that was their spot. They would train everybody, black, white, it doesn't matter what color. And I'm not trying to bring race into it. It's just part of our history. Everybody's history has something like that. But long story short, I'm sitting there stretching out. And, I did it every now and then, kick around. But I'd say when I was 11 years old, like, I really got serious. And that was like probably 78-ish, stretching out and learning more Kung Fu martial arts, more Chinese martial arts, because that's what my brother did. And it was one of those things, we loved the history of Shaw Brothers, Golden Harvest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, everybody. We would go see Five Deadly Venoms, Kids with the Golden Arm, Master of the Flying Guillotine, you name it, Five Fingers of Death. I remember sitting, and I'm sorry to segue, but it is martial arts. Yeah. I remember sitting in a theater with my brother and my dad, because he would take us downtown Chicago back in the day, watching Five Fingers of Death. Yeah. With the
it's a great
flick, and and I'm like probably like 5 or 6 years old because it was early on, the early 70s. My brother was a teenager, and that's when he started martial arts. But I'll segue into your story.
Yeah, so we have 2 older brothers that are much older than us. So basically, whenever we would do something, they would always win. If we're gonna run to the corner, they would let me almost win, and then both of them would run ahead and win. They're bigger brothers. They're awesome brothers, but I can never win anything because I'm small, and they're older and stronger and know more because they're older. So one time I'm watching Charlie Chan, the detective, with my father on a Sunday, and I see him flip a guy, and the guy was big. The stuntman was big, and naturally it's a TV series. So he flips him, and I'm like, holy cow! The little fat guy can throw the big muscular bad guy. I got to learn that stuff because I will finally be able to win at something. So I bugged my dad over and over to take martial art lessons, and eventually he gave in and took me to judo classes, and that's the end of that one.
Yeah, that's where the journey began.
Yeah, it was the beginning.
Yeah, so we come from a generation before the 80s or whatever, and this one martial arts was not even more of a niche thing in the United States. And so, like Carlos was saying, maybe cats who are coming back from Korea or Vietnam. These are the military guys who learned a little bit of martial arts while overseas, and then started doing martial arts here. And then you have, the Chinese, the Kung Fu explosion or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that's the area that really, interested us as younger people or whatever. But then you had, so that's what was going on. And then you had 1984 and the Karate Kid, and this is what changed the game. So you had the ninjas coming in, everything like Enter the Ninja, all of the ninja stuff happening. And then you had Karate Kid, and that turned the industry around. And now martial arts isn't like just for for fighting or the military or policemen or something like that. It's like, oh, this is something for competition for children and all of these things.
Became more accessible, right?
Right, made it more accessible. And then that's how you tie that into Ninja Turtles, into Power Rangers, and all of these type of things. And that was the cultural shift at that time. And so cats about your age, there's ninjas and all of these things. And then, there's ninjas of the Teenage Mutant Ninja variety.
Yeah.
All of these type of things. So that's what was going on, at least, from my perspective at the time. So, then it became, now, we're sitting here 40 years later, and, there's still Ninja Turtle movies coming out. There's still, variation, even Power Ranger stuff or whatever, even Mortal Kombat. But all of these type of things, for at least us, was born through the lens of Shaw Brothers and Five Fingers of Death, Five Deadly Venoms, all of these type of things. But then that's how it was from the 70s to the 80s. But it was that karate. Oh, when Karate Kid, Cobra Kai is still relevant. Yeah, but that was that 1984. That's what made that shift from
100%.
From fighting to accessible to more generations.
How many here had either a karate gi or a ninja outfit as a kid and ran around the house pretending they were like a martial artist? Yeah? Okay, awesome. I have a special surprise for the three of you.
Uh-oh.
So I didn't know that there was a little bit of issue with Raphael, so I hope you don't mind. Everyone turn around behind you and say hello to Raphael.
Yay!
Oh, look at that!
You want to come on up? Can you help him up front, please? That'd be fantastic. Yeah, so you can see him.
Oh, look at that.
That's awesome.
That's crazy.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah,
I wonder if it's as heavy as the one you wore, Tony.
Oh, that is so awesome.
There we go.
Very, very cool.
What is up, Raph? How you doing, Raph? Did you get some pizza? Yes? Okay, good deal, good deal. Always room for pizza. Everyone say hello to Raphael. So when this panel concludes, we're going to get some pictures together. If you all want to see and hang out with Raphael and get a picture taken, he'll be here with us. But this was a nice little surprise I wanted to bring out for you guys. I was hoping he was going to be able to make it.
I love rap.
There we go. All right. Thank you. Mr. Brandon, can you help Raphael? Okay. So this is a nice little segue, especially since Raph comes out and you're asking about, like, is the suit as heavy as what you wore? So, Tony, I want to start with you. And so what I want to talk about is I know that you three have been in the Turtle movies, and I'd like to know, like, how did you get involved with it, and what were some of the challenges? So, Tony, if you want to go ahead and kick us off, I'd like to hear your experiences being Leonardo.
Sure. Okay, where do we start? Okay, so I'll just preface, there is, maybe a through line in my journey. These cats, did Ninja Turtles, but my son was born right at that time, and so there's no way that I was going to do Ninja Turtles. He was born right then. And so, and then I'm watching these guys on screen. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm not doing Ninja Turtles. And then for Mortal Kombat, these guys did Mortal Kombat. I'm not doing Mortal Kombat. And then, oh my God, they're doing Mortal Kombat. And then for now there's a Ninja Turtles 3 coming around. So, there is Pat Johnson. He's the fight choreographer. He was at Battle of Atlanta. He saw a bunch of us or whatever, and then he said, go ahead, send in your tape, and let's see what we can do. So we did that, and so then this is for Ninja Turtles 3, and so then I was hired as a stuntman. So stuntman and utility stunt. So I'm fighting with I'm one of the guards, I'm one of the villagers, I'm fighting with the turtles or whatever. If they need somebody to get thrown in the river, if you run through a burning building, like utility stunts too. So
sure.
I'll do this. But halfway through, we're so far behind schedule that they need, so you have, your first unit, your second unit, which is the action unit, and then they have to fire up a third unit. Oh, wow. In order to catch, to bring this thing in on time. And so we needed another set of turtles. Ho-Sung talked to Pat Johnson, and he said, you know what? Tone can do this stuff. Just, throw him in the suit. And so that's how I got to be Leonardo. Leonardo in the third unit. But you'll find out, too, though, that, so especially with the helmets or whatever, those things are molded to the actor's or stunt person's head. But this one wasn't molded to me. And so I'm wearing Larry Lamb's costume, or the secondary costume or whatever. And like you'll see in the Raphael suit, there is the helmet, and then you have the mask, and then there are two little slits underneath the mask. And that's what you see out of. But with the helmet, it's form-fitted or whatever, and Larry's cheekbones are higher than mine. So instead of being able to see like this, the thing is here, so I can't see.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, because his cheekbones sit up higher. And then, what is that called? You have a suit on, and there's a couple of pieces. You have the bodysuit. The joints are at the elbows and at the knees, and then you have the gloves and the feet or whatever, and then you have the shell. And if you can imagine having a motorcycle helmet and a scuba suit and a 40-pound backpack.
Oh my gosh.
And then you can't see. And then like I just saw this guy, watch out for the ropes and the lights or whatever. This is all happening on set. But you can't hear, you can't see, you can't breathe, and you can't move. But you're in a turtle suit.
Right.
You get to be a Ninja Turtle. And so, the director, hey, can you do this and this and this? Of course I can do this and this and this because I get to be in a turtle suit.
Right.
So that's what that experience is. You can't breathe, you can't see, you can't hear, you can't move. For me personally, I couldn't I couldn't even see it where I couldn't see because it wasn't made for me. And, oh, can you do this stunt? Can you do this? Can you run up here? Can you do this? And you're thinking, this is what I live for. Of course I can do this.
Right.
So that's what it was.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Nice. Master Pesina?
Yeah, for me, we were at Battle of Atlanta, the one of the Tonys was, and then we heard that they were going to be looking for stunt people to be in a martial art movie, and it's a different era. It's not as safe as things are right now. Right now, you could get big actors to do their own stunt, but back in the day, you couldn't do that. They would die. There's not the technology that is necessary, back then to really make like Tom Cruise safe or anything like that. He would be dead. So no matter what action star, probably most of the action stars would be dead. So they're looking for, okay, we need martial arts stunts, and so let's go to a martial art tournament. So they're looking for us, and then myself, we were all there, and we were like, oh, they're looking for that. If they approach one of us, we will say, hey, we know some others that are just as good as us, and, we'd make a great team.
Yes.
So all of a sudden, Hosan comes up to me, and he's like, oh, man, they want me to be in it. And so I mentioned you, and they took a look at you. You've got to drive to North Carolina because they're already going to be filming. And so you got to drive to North Carolina and become a stuntman. And so I took Rich, who's Kano, and we drove down to North Carolina. And, Pat Johnson was like, man, I saw your stuff. I really wanted to get you as need people for the foot. I'm a little bigger than these guys, so there was no way I could beat a turtle. There's no because the costume makes you bigger because as you seem like that. So if you get a bigger guy in it, you're going to be like an 8-foot turtle. And at the time, I didn't know. So we didn't really know what movie it was until I drove down, and he was like, "Oh, we're going to be filming Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles." So I was just like, "Oh my God, it's so awesome!" Yeah, it's just like holy cow. Yeah. So if you ever one of the challenges was if you ever watch the movie, like Tony said, they can't see in the costume. So when you're watching the movies and you're seeing us going like this, it's because we're trying to look at where they're going to kick or punch, and we're trying to put ourselves in front of wherever they're going to kick or punch because they can't see. So even though it looks kind of goofy, you can't stand still and then see the punch, and then you'll get there late. So you got to always be moving to see where they're going to kick and punch, and you got to jump in front of it to get hit,
Right.
or in some way or thrown or whatever it is. So you're taking some impact.
But this is exactly what Danny's talking about, where it's teams of people that are doing this. I guess the most famous team is the Jackie Chan stunt team. But me, Danny, Hosang, and then all the other cats too, like Larry, Stephen Ho. We've all, but especially this group, we grew up together. We know how each other works. We know our ticks. And then the other guys, we've known through martial arts tournaments or whatever. So we know them. But it is very much being able to time everything because nobody can see and nobody can hear, and it's just like in. Okay, let's turn this back to Mortal Kombat. This is where you're supposed to fall down. That famous Johnny Cage thing. That's what happens when things aren't timed correctly, and it doesn't matter who's in the suit. If they're throwing something and you don't fall down, everyone's standing around looking like an idiot. So Danny's exactly right on it. This is why you need teams of guys who do this stuff.
Every time they talk and discuss things, I just remember in my head of, you guys were talking about Battle of Atlanta. So long story short, for mine, then I'm going to segue into a couple memories. I was supposed to go with them to North Carolina to try out with, Pat Johnson and the rest of these guys. But unfortunately, I had schooling and, and a relationship. And like Tony said, he had a son. I had a relationship, and you know how sometimes that goes. You're like, well, I got to make the, you know, the girlfriend or the, you know, the soon-to-be wife happy. And, you know, not putting a blame on her or anything, but once again, it's you know, responsibilities. And I wish every time, I remember when those guys were packing up going, I was like, man, I should just pack my shit up and just go with, you know, because I know I would be in there. But, you know, here are a couple, and once I got into 3, I only worked on, you know, did some stunt stuff for Casey Jones when he was in the cage, you know, only worked for 2 weeks, you know, but as soon as I went down there, you know, and we all talk about each other, and it's not that we're up talking, we're confident that we can all work together. And as soon as I got there, you know, they knew Pat Johnson. He was just such a kind gentleman to me, you know, and I can't express how much he trusted me when, you know, I was on set and had to help him do something. He was just such a great guy, and it was just you know, it was one of those childhood moments where you're like, you know, you see Pat Johnson.
He's a legend.
He was in, he's a legend. He was in Enter the Dragon, and he says, you know, it's you know, the money roper. We got to break your legs. And I was like, holy cow, I'm standing in front of, you know, this guy. You know, but that's how it was back then. We all admired each other. And when they say, you know, Daniel and Hosung and Rich and everybody said that, you know, we would tour, we would do tournaments, I remember first meeting Ernie Reyes Jr. with these guys, and he was maybe like a preteen to teen, very small kid. And then when you go like to go do Turtles, and he's like a grown man, you know, and he's like, you know, very talented, very like technical. And just seeing him, and you're like, you know, people are filming, and hey, how you doing, you know, and just catching up. It's just amazing that, you know, just like, and Lamb and everybody else, and like, and not, in addition, the Mortal Kombat movie, I hate segueing this, Robin Shue, we would work out with him, and it's just one of those things like, holy cow, these guys were in those movies. We would all do tournaments, and that's how that whole core group, and we're not saying we're all core, like we all like, you know, they did Power Rangers or whatever, they moved on, but back in the 80s, you had a competition where people would compete. We were all friendly. We all knew each other, and we knew how much of a badass each one of us was.
Yeah, yeah.
And not that we were all, you know, some of us, like myself, I don't view myself as famous as like, you know, those guys and these guys here. I just look at it like, holy cow, we've all come a long way, and we've worked hard, and we chipped away at that mountain. But, you know, once again, they called me to go to Seaside, Oregon. They're like, hey, we got an opening. You want to come do it? And I was still in school, and I said, yeah, I got a couple weeks off during the summer.
Yeah.
You know, Hosung's like, come on by. And I just remember anytime they discuss stuff, I just start remembering, oh, I remember I didn't have craft service all day because, you know, because you're working all day. Or I remember, what's her name, Paige Turco?
Yeah.
I remember meeting her when they had they had some party on the beach. And, you know, she's in the kitchen, we're all shooting the shit. And, you know, these are movie stars, and you're just like, well, what we're doing today, right now. We're all just having a discussion. And it's just surreal, you know? It's just it's a great ride. It's a blessing.
That's awesome. If I remember correctly, wasn't Pat the referee in Karate Kid?
In Karate Kid, yeah.
That's right. So if you don't know the person they're talking about, like he is a legend, like martial arts and, you know, choreography and stunts and everything, and he was in Karate Kid. And my voice is starting to sound even awful. What I wanted to ask pertaining to Pat and everything too, with your different styles and everything too, did you have any influence on some of the movements or anything that you were doing? And the reason I'm asking this is because the rapport the three of you have and why you all work together all the time is like, there's the trust, right? I know I need to be here in case Tony is trying to do this kick, so that way it always connects and everything too. So when you were choreographing all of these stunts and these different movements, did you have the influence into that, or was it more kind of like Pat's like, hey, we're doing X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, Pat was, because we're all martial artists. We're all top-end martial artists. You know, when they go to the tournament, they're not looking at every martial artist. They're looking at the ones that are, the grand champions of the tournament. So he is all looking at us. So when we work on a movie, he'd be like, okay, Daniel, Rich, another guy, work with Hosung, come up with something. I'll come back and take a look at it, because he's already going to a different turtle to go see what they have. So he's running around making adjustments, because he knows what the director wants. So we had some input in it, and he'd be like, well, how about this move? And he would know us. And he'd be like, if we're doing something, he's like, hey, remember that move you did over here? When he does it, I want you to do this particular type of a flip or fall a particular type of way. So we were like, okay. So he would really, man, he had a lot of rings in his circus.
Yeah.
Not 3, but like a dozen.
But it would be very much that where, okay, like whether it's the Turtles or whatever, like those fight scenes, we would have to go through. Okay, this is what we need to get to, and then would be able to choreograph most of our stuff by ourselves. But when you look at I can't remember, like some of the actors that had to fight or whatever, that's where Pat would actually be more hands-on.
Gotcha.
And okay, this is how you're going to do this. This is how you're going to do this. This is how you're going to do that. So that's where he would actually jump in. But when either on 2 or 3, okay, this is what the fight scene is. Mm-hmm. And we need these beats to happen, and then Danny, can you do, Danny go, Ho go, I go, whatever, and just choreograph this thing, and then let's take a look at it, and let's see if that fits to what we're trying to get to.
That's awesome.
I have one, and once again, I wasn't there, but I remember them telling me this story, so this might jog your memory. And which is the one where, I think it's the first one where the Foot Clan are coming into a industrial place, and it's just showing their shadow. Like the director just wanted to cast the shadow. Yeah. So then, do you remember what I'm talking about exactly?
Yeah. When we're sneaking into Secret of the Ooze, how he just wants a shadow. So he's just like, Pesina, he named 3 other guys, and we spent the whole day just trying to reshape our shadow, creeping in. Like it's people think like, oh, it's just 1 or 2 takes. No, it's like really 12 hours. And you're doing the same thing over and over again. And you can't really, when he's like, okay, take a break, he doesn't mean you get to relax. He means like, oh, move to the side and be ready at any moment to repeat it again. So you're not really, you don't have downtime. You're always in a state of be ready, because it's a budget. You got to stay in it, and you can't be like, oh, I got to warm up again. No, you're constantly right. You're constantly warming up and being ready for the entire 12 hours you're on set.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it is just not what people think. It's an experience.
Yep, but here's the thing. They filmed that over and over again. And Pat looked at it, and all the directors, everybody, whether it was, I think, second unit, and they looking at it, and they're like, man, there needs to be something here. The shadows and silhouette look great. And I remember my brother telling me this. He's like, they needed something, and what I did was when I walked in, you rolled the Kali stick, and they loved it. It was one of those things actions. They didn't know what they needed,
right?
And and this is the beauty of like hiring those guys, Ernie Reyes and the rest, and Tony and Ho-Sung, and my brother and Rich and myself. When a director comes to you and they know what they want, but they just can't formulate it because they're not martial artists. But even Pat was like, I need something here, but you know what I mean? You're stuck. He's probably stuck thinking of everything he's got to do for the day. And my brother just says, okay, I'll just roll the stick. And if you look at that scene, you can tell that's my brother. I'm like, and he told me that when he came back, and I'm like, yep. And when I saw it on, ran to the VHS store, pay your $1 to watch it over and over. Because it's your friends, and you're like, oh my God, look, that's Ho-Sung. Oh my God, look, that's Tony. And it's just great seeing that.
So, what was your favorite or fondest experience during the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles shooting? Anyone can jump in.
For me, it was you're with a stunt group, and you don't really know them, and you know, besides, sure, I know my brother and Tony and Ho-Sung and Rich, but I don't know any of the other guys, really. And all of a sudden, you're working constantly and hanging out with these guys. Like I said, 12 hours, 6 days a week. So you become so close. It really becomes like a brotherhood. We're always watching each other's backs because we have to. Because we know that, if something happens, we have to be there prepared to help out, or, to make sure that we got to sell, the hit, or sell the kick, or sell the throw, or sell the fall. And it's just like you're constantly, hey, you're all right? We were constantly checking on each other to make sure, because again, like Foot Clan, we had these small knee and elbow pads, and that was it. When you're getting kicked in the face, there's no padding to get kicked in the face, because you could tell that there's padding. So guess what? Oh, you don't get padding to get kicked in the face. So people, even the guys in the shells would be like, oh man, I didn't know where you were, so I didn't. When I kicked, you took the whole impact. So it was, you get a bunch of people just caring for you, that become your family really quick.
Yeah, it is very much so. To go off of what Danny was saying, especially in 3 or whatever, there's 3 months of pre-rehearsal before we started shooting or whatever. So even if you don't know the guys, you really get to know them, because we'll warm up together. We each take turns warming up the group, and then we go through the the blocking and choreography and all of that good stuff. So we could talk about that really, really, really. But my favorite experience was that party on the beach with Paige and everybody else. And I know Danny has posted a couple of clips of that, but oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say there's a party on the beach, and Pat Johnson was not happy, and that's what it is, and that's what I'm going to leave.
All right.
You kept them up all night. That's what happened.
Yeah, we were singing on the beach the whole night. The whole crew was singing on the beach the whole night. He's like, "What are you guys doing?"
Yeah. Yeah, my thing was, I was doing just some stand-in work for Casey Jones, and there's a moment where and I can't remember if he's hanging upside down. I wasn't doing that stunt because I couldn't do that type of stunt, meaning I wasn't qualified to do it yet, because you're in a guild.
Yeah.
So it's a certain gag. So they had a stunt man hanging upside down, and I'm on set just in case they have to do any of the lighting. And Pat Johnson came over, and we were done with the shoot, and they shot what they needed. And he's trying to get the stuntman down, but he's wearing all this armor. He's pretty heavy, and it's just Pat right now because the group was split into like Tony said, 3 teams. You're very minimal on staffing, yes. And Pat is actually running around doing all of his what he has to do, and he just happened to be on the set, and he's like, oh shit, I got to take this guy down. There's nobody else. Mm-hmm. Otherwise they'd get 3 or 4 guys to help this guy down, and he's hanging way up there. He's at least, 5 feet in the air. And when you're lowering a guy upside down, Pat is with the armor, the guy's easily 250, and he's not that weight. It's just everything. So he grabs him, and, people started rushing over because it's super heavy. And Pat stopped everybody. He's like, don't touch him. I only want Pesina to touch him right now. Get over here. And I was in an instant, when you hear that, because they said, when Pat says, hey, you got to be on it, and if you're not on it, then, you're out, because life depends on it, because he didn't want the guy getting hurt. And I ran over there, and I thought, holy cow, this guy, he trusted me for that one moment, and that was an honor for me, and it's just, it's very touching. And I tell it all the time, but it just meant so much to me because he was my, one of our childhood heroes growing up, Yeah. So
and again, like I said, back then you didn't have the safeties, so there's nothing. And the way they hung them, if you don't know what you're doing, you could break the guy's spine just moving them down off the way they're off the chain with the armor and stuff like that. So. Like I said, you really had to know what you're doing back in those stunt days.
So I want to be very considerate of your time. I know you have to have a hard stop. I hope you all have enjoyed this. I love talking about this stuff. I could probably talk to the three of you for like hours on end.
Sure.
This has been one of the greatest honors of my life, meeting the three of you, being able to talk about turtles and martial arts and reminisce about some stuff that, like, I talk to some people and they're like, I have no idea who these people are. And I'm like, okay. So being able to have this and you guys go like, oh yeah, I know who that is, and have that, it's been a great honor and a great pleasure. I appreciate you so much. Thank you all so much for your time. I am Jason. I'm That Weekend Warrior on YouTube. And this has been 40 years of Ninja Turtles with the Ninja Turtles and Foot Clan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bless you.
Go, go, go.